Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of Emerging Brands Podcast with Kelly Bennett. Today, I have a very special guest, someone I've been looking forward to interviewing after we had a really great conversation about what she does and how she works with brands. So, Sarah Maguire, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been so fun meeting you in the last month, and I'm really excited to be here too.
Yes, thank you. So before we jump so much into PR and how you work with consumer packaged good brands, food and beverage brands, I would love to hear, how did you start your PR company?
Yeah, so I've been doing PR for about 10 years and really kind of found my niche in food and beverage in the last 5 years. I've worked in multiple different agencies and really kind of for the first few years of my career, I was really trying to figure out, okay, like what do I actually like to do? And I don't really have many hobbies. One of the main hobbies I have is like eating and drinking and going out in New York City and obviously getting to travel when I can. And so I kind of just like had this like aha moment of like, I should just work in the food and beverage industry because that's what I like to do the most. And I think I'm going to do the best work doing that. So, for the last few years before starting my own agency, I was working at food and beverage CPG brand, agencies that really focused on that. And then kind of the reason why I started my own kind of consulting agency was, after 10 years, I had that like dream scenario where an old client called me and they said, we really want to work with you. And not your agency. And we just haven't been able to find that right PR fit since, we left you. So are you ready to like go out on your own? And I really felt like I was. I feel like I got, a lot of, a variety of PR experience, worked with a ton of great, incredible founders and mentors, and was ready to do this on my own and felt like it was the right time. So to be honest, I had no real plan. I just kind of, went out for it, networked my butt off, ended up getting a few great, first initial clients that kind of helped bring in some buzz. And all of a sudden, I started May 2022, and probably by July, I had 4 clients on my roster. So again, it was just really like super hustling mode of, figuring out, the right type of clients, because for the first time I got to be like in that driver's seat and figuring out the clients that I wanted to work on. So the kind of few things as I was like, creating my, website and branding and figuring like what are my own mission and values were to work with brands that I truly was passionate about the product. Made sure so it's something I would personally consume and want to advocate for. That's something on the agency side you really don't get to do. And I think people understand in media that, but it's just really nice to finally be in that, control position, work with really nice, awesome people. Like at the end of the day, like we're the biggest brand voice for these founders and these brands. So making sure they're just really nice humans is really important. And then brands that, are in the CPG space that maybe aren't household names yet, but, have the ambitions to be so, really have a, diverse portfolio of being in retail, being online, like having a healthy kind of growth mindset, and, are ready for that PR attention, and just ready for storytelling and wanting a founder-led brand. I feel like at the end of the day, consumers want to know who's behind the brand more than ever. So it's really important to have brands who are ready to have that founder out there, because I think that also makes it super compelling of, why am I going to choose this granola brand? It's usually because of the founder or something cool in the product. So those are kind of the factors that kind of helped me start Sarah Maguire PR.
I took so many notes already of just what you were saying because there was so much there, and I'm so excited to dive in.
Oh,
One
good.
thing that you said that I think is so encouraging, and especially for someone who is maybe on that cusp of, I've been in my career, I've been paying my dues, I'm having this feeling, especially I think for service-based brands like you and I, it's knowing or feeling like, okay, this is the right time to branch out. And what I heard is that you actually got that nudge from someone reaching out to you and saying, "Hey, I want to just hire you." What gave you that confidence to say, "Okay," and make that leap? Because I'm sure that was scary and exciting, but oh my gosh, can this really work? Did you also do that at the same time of your full-time job? I would love to know a little bit of that because I feel like many people listening to this are in that in-between stage.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good question. I feel like it's like a few factors of one. Like I felt like I had tried every type of like agency PR fit out there, really small boutique, like 3 people. I'd been at 100-person agencies. I've been at 1,000-person, big company for my first like PR internship. So I had experienced every different environment. I realized I'm pretty, I like to be in the control position. I like to be straightforward with the clients. I like to kind of like take that initiative and get to like really do what I want to do. And obviously when you have managers and bosses, that sometimes it can be a little bit of a conflict. So I think one, just really wanting to be like, look, I know what I'm doing and confident in knowing what I'm doing, but I'm having to, listen to people that are higher up that actually I felt like didn't have the experience or knowledge to be giving me the right direction or these clients the right direction. So I think it was a little bit of truly like frustration of just like, okay, I think I know better than some of the people I'm working with. And at this point, I've been doing this for 10 years. Like what's holding me back? Another thing was I had some really close PR friends in this industry who have gone out on their own and I'd seen them succeed. And obviously COVID was really tough for a lot of my freelance friends, but I had seen them kind of coming back and just having that flexibility and autonomy. And, at the same time, this client that came back to me, she was someone I worked with 2 other agencies. I really believed in her mission, her product. I knew she would be a really great advocate for me in the industry. She was really well respected. And it just felt like the right thing to be stupid not to say yes to. And also what was kind of interesting was she at first had kind of was like trying to hire me in-house a little bit more so and figure out me and one other brand to work with. And so I was like, okay, I'll have insurance covered. Like it will be a little bit of an easier transition. And then we really kind of quickly realized paperwork wise, so that was tougher. But she was like, I'm really ready to help you network and find some other clients. And, that was kind of the perfect start to be like, okay, like I have someone who's like pushing for me, has that, has a track record with me. And I also frankly was like really burnt out. I think this PR industry, you're constantly overworked. I was working on 12 brands at the time, managing 15 people. Like I wasn't happy, And so I think at the end of the day, like that was the biggest impetus was just like, I want to reset. Like maybe I freelance for a few months and I hate it. I go back to another agency. Like I'm willing to take that risk. But I was ready and in a financial position as well, fortunately to have my parents' support and just, do this and, take the time to travel and experience, things that I was, stuck on the, again, in that agency desk job side for so long that I really had that urge. And I think it really pushed me to just go for it. And, I'm so glad that a year plus I'm still doing it. So
I love this so much. And you mentioned networking, which
yeah.
especially for a lot of founders in the early years, that could feel like a really daunting task. It's something that even myself, being an entrepreneur for 15 years now, I've struggled at times of that quote unquote networking and putting yourself out there. What did you find was helpful for you to network in a more authentic, organic? Because also PR networking is like even next level networking, right? Like that's full throttle, really putting yourself out there. But what for you was that balance, or if you found that balance of networking, putting your name out there, getting yourself in front of new potential clients or different people who could refer clients to you? What has that now look like? I'm also asking for myself. I think
Yeah,
you've been doing
no.
such a great job. How are you doing it?
No, I appreciate that a lot. So I feel like it's a few ways. One, when we're in PR, we are constantly pitching and putting ourselves out there every day. So like
Right.
I feel like it's also less of a fear factor of like, I'm not going to get a response or this feels like, this is too much of a stretch. Like we're doing it every day, trying to get our clients top tier placements or to meet with journalists that, maybe we don't personally know, which is a lot of the time. So I think it's one, just already having that mindset of like, I'll probably get more rejected more than not, just because that's become the everyday like norm of doing PR.
Right.
And two, like I ended up doing like a LinkedIn post, just kind of putting it out there. And that kind of went viral, seems like the wrong word, but it did get some attention, which was great. And that kind of snowballed into a lot of things. Another thing I really pride myself on was like, I really had like very honest, open relationships with all the clients and like coworkers I've ever worked with. And so I think people knew like exactly like who they were gonna like when they were referring me, they knew exactly my work ethic. They knew exactly who I was. Like I wasn't someone that was a people pleaser. And so I feel like that really helped in the sense of like people knew who I was. It wasn't like, oh, that, we worked together for 6 months and she kind of was in the background. Like I feel like I did have a bigger personality that was memorable. And so that took advantage of that. And just also like I did a lot of, networking with other PR friends and being like, hey, do you know anybody who's, into CPG or who needs an extra hand right now? And so I'm also in a couple of really amazing like PR networking groups, both on Slack and on email that have been super helpful for client referrals, things like that. I've gone to Expo West, which is a really big CPG trade show, in exchange for helping a brand, helping their booth. And so just again, being scrappy and putting yourself out there. I also think too, like I always paid it forward when I was like on the agency side of, taking those, college, student emails, asking if they can like, talk to you about your career. I feel like that was always felt like the karma was coming back. And I feel like it did kind of come back twofold when I launched my own business and kind of did the same to other people. And I think also at the end of the day, our industry is so friendly and nice. Like it's super supportive. Like people generally do want to help out. I feel like in fashion or beauty, it's a little bit more cutthroat and a little bit more protective of your, your sources. But and CBD people really tend to, want to help. And some of my really close, new friends in the last year have been through this PR networking and, we're all pitching the same clients sometimes. And it's truly like the best person who's the best fit for the job wins. And that's okay. Like it's not, doesn't need to be so competitive and cutthroat. So.
I love that a lot because I think a lot of the hesitation behind networking and behind putting yourself out there obviously is rejection, right? That's usually people's biggest fear. So, what it sounds like also is that through practice and honestly probably going under the assumption that it will get rejected, you've you've been able to build up this muscle that you don't necessarily overthink it, that it's now second nature to just always be pitching and focus on the next pitch versus being so tied to one particular outcome. It sounds like you are putting it out there constantly or consistently, I should say, and you are trusting that the right fit is coming back to you as well. I love that.
No, I think that's so true. And I think too, especially with like, I don't know why my mind just went to like client referrals and trying to like win clients and, get that new business. It's like putting that like nice perspective of not being over top on them and like understanding we all are like trying to do our jobs, but also like advocating for the brands that you really think are going to be the best fit, like going after your dream brands and also saying no to some of those like referral calls. Like I know right away that anything that's like coconut based, I'm never going to like, I don't like coconut. So like, I'm not going to waste so much time with that. Or if it's,
I remember that seeing that on your, I want to say it was on your website, right?
I did a podcast where I talked about it and everyone like thought it was like the funniest thing, but I was
Yes.
like, this is the true mantra of me. So again, it's just like, I know what brands at this point, I think really work well with like my interests and track record. So I've just been more and more, smart about doing that because it's a two-way street of networking and taking that initial call. We're all busy. So, being smart about it.
And it sounds like, too, the fact that you niche down to food and beverage and also CPG food and beverage brands, it sounds like that has also put you in rooms and spaces to be known for a particular aspect of PR because PR could be quite broad, right? So it sounds like that also, I'm sure, has helped with networking and referrals because now you have a specialty, you're known for something, and you're personally really passionate about it. So
Yeah, no,
I think that's
exactly.
a great piece.
Yeah, not to cut you off, but I feel like the leaning into the niche was actually really helpful. I think a lot of, again, people come in and they want to say they're flexible and they're a generalist. And like, technically, I am a generalist. I've done PR for every type of industry from technology to healthcare to entertainment, but I don't, that's not my passion or interest. Like, I will do the best job working in this space. I'm also like going, to these CPG networking events. I know people outside of the media PR world in this industry too, and that's really helpful. So I can understand, when they're talking about their distributor problems or they need, fundraising help. Like I fully understand that landscape and that industry enough to, I feel like really, be a good partner for them. So yeah, it's been really helpful just to figure out that niche, I would say.
Absolutely. And also something else you touched upon that I really love, and it sounds also like a differentiator for your own personal brand, is that you work with founder-led brands. And so when someone thinks of a founder-led brand, how do you describe that to someone who maybe isn't sure, like, am I a founder-led brand? I'm not sure. I'm just kind of wearing all the hats right now because I'm being scrappy and getting my brand off the ground. But how do you explain a founder-led brand? Because again, that was something that really struck me when looking at your website and connecting with you. I'm like, ooh, I love that verbiage.
Oh, nice. Honestly, one of the first agencies I went to once I kind of figured out my food and beverage niche, that was kind of their mantra was founder led
Mm,
mission storytelling. And I really saw like the proof firsthand of, people want to know like who's behind that brand, right? So when you're founder led, it's having that founder out there who's advocating for the brand on their behalf. And, usually it's also like involved with the, personal story or a launch story inspiring like what happened with the brand, so having that really authentic storytelling moment of this is why this is our brand and this is what we've been doing, and also being really vulnerable and putting yourself out there of like talking about your experience with and without the brand or the challenges that you're facing. I think that's so important to not just talk about your wins, because media consumers are like want to hear about the vulnerability. The more vulnerable you are, the more you're going to earn the trust, the more people are going to be like, oh hey, like I really did like that. I think I'm going to pick this brand over that brand in the grocery aisle because I heard them on a podcast and they just seem really cool and relatable. And like, I would want to be friends with them. So I want to support their business. That goes a long way versus I think the more old school PR tactics of, media training being so buttoned up. Like it just sounds robotic. And, you have your story out there is one of the few things that distinguishes you. So I think leaning into that as much as possible. And, of course I've been talking to, to people who maybe you're afraid that their side hustle, they really need to keep it as a side hustle. And that's fine. You're just
mm.
not a fit for what I do with PR. So,
And that brings me to my next question, as far as what are you finding that is resonating with media, press, especially in the food and beverage space? I would love to hear your insight of what you're finding or what maybe you're also looking for as far as from a brand story or from a founder that you're like, ooh, that's something I could work with that. Anything catching your ears right now?
so I think there's like a few factors on like what makes something, I would say, like pitchable to media, especially for what I do. I think one, obviously, it's having this, incredible, compelling founder story and having, really great personal narrative that works with the brand and outside the brand. So, I mean, at the end of the day, people want to learn. Like, if you have a founder with a really cool hobby or, a really interesting background, or they traveled a bunch to test the product out. Like, even those little nuances are super interesting to media. I think also too, like we've kind of been in this like CPG bubble sometimes, and like the better for you space. I feel like
Hmm.
people are kind of over that. Like they really at the end of the day want products that taste good, that are like interesting looking, that are at a compelling price point, can be found easily. Those are some of the
Right.
factors. Like I when I take on brands too, I make sure that they are available at least online and hopefully a bigger national retailer. Just because it makes my job much easier. Everyone's media audiences are based all over the country for the most part. So only being available locally is really, really tough for media. And I think too, just, making sure that you have a brand that's truthfully just like not a white bro. Like that's
Hmm.
out. Like nobody wants to really cover that. Obviously they're out there and it's just like not something like I really try to maintain our client roster where there's some diversity to it, whether it's having females on there or, diverse backgrounds. But I think it's really important as somebody who is, privileged white person in this space to like pay it for it and have it, a roster that kind of reflects not just what I am. And I think there's just more storytelling and more people, more of these media publications are focusing on you know, these months where it's like, it's like not just Women's History Month, but it's Women's History Day or, Hispanic, Leadership Month, whatever it is. Like there's just so many of these holidays that are really great news hooks, and really are, they're finally kind of flipping that narrative of just, talking about certain types of founders and, people in the space.
I love that. And I think also, too, that gives a founder who's been historically underrepresented in the space or whatever industry that they're in, knowing that no, media is looking for you. They
Yeah.
are looking for stories like yours because that's what's interesting and needed and desirable. For you, how do you explain to a founder and a brand that they're ready for PR, that they're ready for that next stage of growth? I love what you said of being the brand voice and helping get their brand message out there. How does a brand know that they're ready for that next step?
Yeah, I mean, it's twofold, right? So it's either brands who are ready to like launch in the space and want that PR moment. I think, it's really critical to have that PR, someone in PR helping you like launch your brand into the space, because your marketing language is not going to resonate with media and consumers necessarily. So just, making sure to have that time and prep. But also, if you're gonna be ready for PR, you need to like make sure that PR person, has a voice at the table, is just as important as the sales or finance person, for example. Also having the resources and time to it. Like PR can't work independently. We need to be knowing, everything going on in your business, making sure that you can, commit to the biweekly meetings we do, or meet deadlines, or have the time to actually do the interviews and background calls. At the same time, like we're obviously pitching media, a ton of different story ideas, but it's up to you to really like deliver and sell it through that makes it compelling. Like if you're really boring on the phone, or you're too busy to take a call for a month, that's really tough for the PR person. There's just, we need to have flexibility and people who are ready to put themselves in the spotlight. I think another thing that's really common is this like soft launching versus actually launching a brand, and when to put the PR in.
Right.
And I think the misconception is like, oh, well, I'm soft launching, so I don't want the media attention right now. But I always tell brands, you get one launch. Like media doesn't have two launch moments. And maybe you have a pre-sale and you call it a pre-sale, you don't call it a soft launch. I think that's the better personal terminology I like to encourage clients and brands to use. But it's a big news hook. Like you get one launch moment. So just making sure you're ready for that. And also like, a lot of people think they can hire PR a month in advance of them launching. And you definitely need at least 2 to 3 months, I would say, to do a thoughtful job. So, you're creating that media facing language, you're doing the media training. You're also, especially for CPG food and beverage brands, like you're having that product like trialed and tested by media. And especially if you're a brand where you have to cook something, or something where you really need to see the lifestyle changes, that takes even longer. So, I tell brands like, expect that when your package gets delivered, there's 20 other brands ahead of you in their queue. And so that's why it takes so much time. So making sure, even if you don't have that pretty product, packaging ready, at least they can try like the consumer would. That's really important. And then just having like your whole website ready, like making sure you're ready to hit, have that traffic, and your social media is teasing the brand in a way that's not going to, again, ruin any media exclusivity or that media unveil moment. So kind of making sure everything's like working and you're ready to kind of do launch week, launch month interviews too, to have the time carved out for that. Yeah, hopefully that was helpful.
That is so good. I'm also taking notes because I know I'm going to be sending out this episode to many, many clients and many, many people. So how does it work working with your brand, Sarah Maguire PR? How does that work for a brand?
Yeah. So the way I've kind of figured out structuring this, obviously it's been tweaked over the last year plus, is making sure, one, that, the brand, we like sign on for 3 months. I feel like that's a really
Mm.
healthy amount of time to understand, okay, are we vibing? Are we gelling? Like, are we a fit? Is this product or, brand a fit with media? Like, what's the media reception like? You kind of get to just understand that work cadence. I also understand, true, like these brands that are coming to me typically are, really a true startup. They might not have the financial budget to, have longer than 3 months to really test something out like that. And so I think it's really important just to like, give it space and time, but also like, let's just like see after 3 months if this is working. Like, do we have a lot of things in the pipeline? Are you being a good PR partner? And then, I'll do kind of the pillars I kind of do for my services are, one, just like the traditional like media relations. So pitching your brand to a lot of different media verticals, which is, digital, online, broadcast, print, along with kind of this like thought leadership angle and the founder positioning. So making sure that getting the budget, helping you, with awards and speaking engagements and, doing podcasts and really, kind of honing in on really learning how to speak about yourself and the brand and doing panels and things like that. And then it's this affiliate marketing side as well. So making sure that these brands know how to leverage affiliates. And just to give a quick overview for your audience,
Right.
the way that it's working right now is, instead of traditional advertising, they're using these affiliates, which are like done through certain platforms, which are those kind of like shoppable, clickable, links and stories. And media is getting a significant cutback, and same with the platform. But it's really the only way for these brands to compete with brands that are on Amazon, on Walmart, these brands where, they're getting even a bigger cutback from, the full cart value, whatever that person's, journey is on Amazon. So if they click on a article, for example, saying like, best cereals, that are healthy right now to eat. And then you buy your cereal on Amazon, but then you also stock up on all your household cleaning supplies. Like the media company will get a good percentage of that. So that's why there's always these 10 things about Amazon right now stories. And so just, at the end of the day, I think it's better to like leverage it and understand the affiliate space so you're not left behind. So making sure, especially for any brands, that have a good digital presence, like this is really, really important. And, I can help run the page and make sure that it's really focused for PR, making sure that you're not getting a lot of coupon sites out there that can be really confusing and overwhelming. And another kind of thing I've been, doing is obviously like figuring out how to, encourage brands to, have the budget to do, really special events with media, because again, food and beverage, nothing makes, it's just so helpful to have that media interact with the founder, but also get to try the product out in a way that will just really help them remember your brand versus, the 10 others they can pick for a story or a roundup. And then also I call it this like VIP influencer kind of like network relationship building, where it's like I have gotten some really great contacts over the years of working in PR with at the celebrity agency I was working at, and just some really amazing content creators. So getting your product in their hands and then seeing if they'll do a fun unboxing, or they create a recipe, or they become like a brand ambassador, or really it just depends on that. Not really managing the fully like I'm not going to run a brand social media or fully run their influencer program, but just kind of helping with those intros and, getting, again, social media and PR, like we should be working hand in hand to really make the most impact, because, at the end of the day, the consumer is going to see your brand in a story, but also on a cool content creators, pages. And then also, like in the grocery store in a cool shelf, like you don't know what's going to lead to the purchase. So I think it's just important to really like fully again, be smart and strategic and use every kind of, angle and industry opportunity we can.
Sarah, I literally filled up 2 pages of notes while you were talking. I'm geeking out right now. This is such valuable insight. And I love how robust your services are, but also it's really straightforward. And that's not easy to find that balance, especially running your own business as a service-based provider. And so I really love how you've carved out your own niche within a niche of how you provide PR services, and then also in a more holistic way for the founder. And that is such a unique offering. And I'm sure that founders who work with you feel that, because that is a really cool way of going about it.
Well, thank you. I mean, again, it's been a lot of like trial and error figuring out what I actually like doing, because I think when you're on the agency side for 10 years, you kind of just, you do all these things and you're like, well,
right.
You know what? I don't really like filling out those panel applications, so I'm not going to offer it to my founders. Or yeah, it's a necessary evil. So I will, but like, again, like charging extra for that. So again, it's the little things where it's like tailoring what I personally like to do, because at the end of the day, you want, your PR person to enjoy working on the brand and not be stuck in this like, land of doing reports and all these things that aren't necessary. Like you want them to be telling your story to media as much as possible. That's really, what they're there for. So
that's a great point. To close out this conversation that I literally could talk to you for hours, I appreciate everything you've shared today. Is there one last piece of advice you would give a emerging brand founder who, again, is on that cusp of, okay, I feel like I'm ready to move to the next stage with PR and getting my brand out there and getting myself out there and being more seen? Any other piece of advice you would leave someone with?
I mean, I think what's really important is at the end of the day, PR is not going to drive sales. I think that's a really big misconception and a really big push from a lot of founders when we start to work together. And so, the end of the day, it's just making sure that you're ready for that general brand awareness. And that can be through so many different avenues. So one, making, sure that you understand if you want sales, like put that money into social media marketing spend. Like PR is not the right fit for you. And that's totally okay. Like some people have really ambitious brand growth goals that they need to meet, and PR just might not be the right avenue. But two, like making sure you really have, the resources and dedication to like growing and sustaining the PR relationship. So, I think it's also figuring out, okay, if I have the, you find your budget, but do you want a consultant? Do you want a small agency? Do you want a big agency? What are those real differences? And to me, the going with the kind of, consulting, agency format that I have, you get somebody who's, had hopefully at least like 5 to 7 years of experience. They know who to pitch. They know the stories that are going to land. They understand the industry. They really can be strategic and nimble, versus, a bigger agency, they might be able to help you with these bigger initiatives and, really complex campaigns you're working on. But very quickly, you're going to start working with the most junior person on the team. Those president, founders, and VPs are going to disappear from the meetings. There's going to be a ton of processes you're going to have to go through, and it's just going to be a little bit harder to be super nimble and fast and quick. And media, especially in this landscape, you want someone who can hop on a newsjack trend of a cool TikTok trend that your client's a perfect fit for, or if your client's product sells out, like, doing those sellout stories versus, just not saying I don't have the bandwidth, or I'm, stuck in a meeting for 4 hours with another client all day on an offsite. So I think, again, it's just figuring out what is going to lend you the results you want, and just interviewing, I'm making sure too to like interview at least a few people, like really understand who's on your client roster. What are your favorite brands to work on? Like, what do you personally like to cook and consume and eat and drink? Like, is this going to be a real natural fit? Because you want someone who's really a brand advocate for you. So
Again, I loved every single word that you shared today. I took so many notes. I can't wait to send this to every client I've ever had, ever.
Oh, well, I so appreciate it. You've
No,
been a
it's
great
true.
mentor.
Sarah, this was really, really valuable because PR is one of those aspects of building a brand that I think is very mystical to many people, including myself. And I've even worked with publicists over the years on certain brands. And even I was like, walk me through exactly how this works, right? And so I really appreciate how you've made your PR strategy very tangible and tactile, and also adjusting expectations so someone could really wrap their head around what and why and how it works, and how that fits within the scope of building their brand and scaling their brand. And you just are so passionate about it also that it irradiates off. And so I just really, again, appreciate everything you shared today, because I know this is going to be super, super helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, like PR should not be some like big mystery. Like you should know exactly what your PR agency is doing. And if you don't have that sense, then they probably aren't doing the work you think they're doing. Like I think that's just the biggest red flag. So again, just really, having that really healthy, trusting relationship with your PR person or team, I think really helps, get the best results. And that's what it's about at the end of the day. It's just getting your brand out there as much as possible and landing that big Today Show hit or whatever your dream, press moment is. Like that's what we're all working for. So
Love it. How can someone find you, connect with you, learn more about your services?
yeah, so I have a website, sarahmaguirepr.com, that kind of explains, all the services, has work examples, case studies if you need them. I'm also on LinkedIn and, Instagram with Sarah Maguire PR, Sarah Maguire on LinkedIn. So find me. And then, my email is sarah@sarahmaguirepr.com, and Maguire is spelled Maguire. So yeah, I'm hoping I would
So
love
good.
to, anyone that wants to, chat about PR, has questions, I'm always happy to help.
Amazing. Thank you again. I'll put all the links to your website and all the places to find you in the show notes. Thank you, Sarah, again, for taking the time to talk PR. This was an incredible episode, and thank you everyone for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye.